Is there any other additions or changes to the agenda other than the removal of item 7A? All right, I'm not seeing any, so that the agenda as amended will stand approved by acclamation unless there's any objection to that. We'll move on to item 3, which is report of committee chair and alderman. Nice to see everyone again. It's been a while. I think it might be later on in the agenda, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I just get scheduling of additional meetings. That might take some time.
Now would be a good time.
Okay, so budget time comes but once a year, and we are all overjoyed that it comes like Christmas. And as part of that, we usually schedule additional meetings. If we cover ground and we don't need them, we will cancel them, but understanding that to cover all the topics of the budget, in meetings that won't run for 5 hours, we're just needing new times. I know that there has been some email back and forth about conflicts, so and Nancy, you're a very important part of this process, so I want to do everything we can to.
Kelly has brought the October, November calendar, and Eric, you have the dates, so why don't you go through the dates and.
Yeah, what we kind of planned out, and Kelly can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to do this from memory.
Microphone on.
Kelly can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have our normal meeting on October 2nd, which is when we will present the budget. We'll start with.
Do you mean October 5th?
Yes, I do. I've talked about October 5th, which is when we'll do the budget presentation. And so we'll go through the main presentation. We'll make Michelle come up and talk a little bit. The finance director and myself will handle that one. And then we'll try, depending on timing, get into some of the departments. We won't be able to do all of it on October 5th, as we've figured out in the past. I think right now we have the 19th and the 26th sort of earmarked for additional meetings if we need them, with then hopefully the final presentation and approval on November 2nd. I believe it's the 2nd of November is what I'm thinking of. So then it can go to the board in late November, early December.
And that would be, if we really are, I know we want to do the budget in 2 reads. So if I'm looking at the sort of latest and working backwards, we'd want to, if the latest possible would be first read the first week of December, and then the second read, the first Monday of December, and the second read, the third read. That would be kind of the last.
Yeah, what we have programmed right now is to, if we can get it to the board that second meeting in November, and then be able to approve it that first meeting in December, that gives us, as you said, that extra week to play with, whether there's delays in Ways and Means or delays at the board level.
Got it.
We try to give ourselves at least that one meeting.
Okay, so Nancy, can you remind me again
So,
what your dates are?
I have had a longstanding conflict on October the 5th, and I also have a conflict on October the 19th. So I'm hoping we could
So,
meetings.
yeah, remind me again, is it that you're going to be out the week of the 9th? Is that it?
I'm out from the 4th through the 13th, and then also the 19th and 20th.
So, looking at the first week of October, would it be possible to have Ways and Means on the 4th, which is a Wednesday,
Oh, it would need to be on the 3rd.
or the 3rd, which is a Tuesday? Is that doable for everybody? You'll be missed. But I think if there are, what I think of how we normally do it, our subject matter, our department head, subject
Tuesday.
matter experts can make their presentations as needed, or I think that's when you said you're going to do the main presentation. So if others, those people will be available. So if 10-3 will work as our sort of regular meeting, that is 5:30 a doable time. Okay, so we'll do that. And then, the next one was the 19th, and you, Nancy, you said that,
Yeah, so if that, I'm available the 17th or 18th if others are. Oh, okay.
the 18th works for me. Does that work for, so we can do the 18th? So if I,
The other dates work for me, but I don't know about the others.
The issue I'm going to have is November 2nd. I'm going to be out of town. I know that's the hope to have it wrapped up by then. But
well, we have our calendars out, if, so
Have a meeting also tentatively on the 26th.
is that a meeting, is that a time that works for? so-
26 is
26 is
fine,
fine.
yeah.
So let's keep the 10, keep that, and again, you know, if for, you know, if we get through this and we don't need to have the meetings, great, but they're there if we need it. So why don't we, so we've got 10:03, 10:18, 10:26, times all at 5:30, and since we're, and in terms of the first, yeah, in terms of the, November meeting, instead of the 2nd, is November 1 available?
No,
And
no, I'm out of town at that, basically from the 1st through the rest of that week.
what about that would,
Date scheduled on the 16th.
what about, well, I mean, if we have it on the if we have a meeting on the 26th, the next earlier would be 31.
That's Halloween.
Oh, sorry, right, the high holy day of Halloween. For those who celebrate. Well, I guess
The 8th.
the 8th would be after the first Board of Aldermen meeting on the 6th.
There's a Planning and Zoning Commission on the 8th, looks like.
So what about the
The
7th?
7th is election day, but,
Yeah. Is there?
you know, no,
What about the 9th?
There's Public Works,
Oh,
but
okay.
it started at 5, and it was just an hour. You could do both. Jeff and I are here.
and if it doesn't work for everybody else, then, and the 2nd needs to remain, then I'll try to do what I can to
Well, at that
join
point, if the,
via Zoom if I have to.
Do you not want to move it to the, I mean, you have a date on the 16th already set up. Do you want to just move it to that? I mean, do you just
November
wanna-
16th?
November 16th.
There's an
November
alternate day on the
16th
16th.
Is an alternate date.
Okay, will the 16th work?
Yeah, it
Okay,
does work.
let's do,
So cancel the 2nd and do the 16th.
so yeah, so the November regular meeting will be on the 16th instead of, November 2.
The only small thing I'd say about the 16th is that if there's changes that have to be turned around, that have to be turned around that night, because the agenda has to be out on the 16th for the board meeting on the 20th.
I'm thinking by that time, we don't have,
Well, I mean, I don't, we have, given that we have all of the other dates set, is it possible looking ahead, you know, to tackle the bigger issues, you know, on the other dates, and we're kind of leaving that one as a minor issues, or, you know, to give ourselves rope?
Yeah, I mean, not to speak for anyone, but Michelle has promised me that our budget presentation will be so tight that you'll be ready to approve it on the 26th of October.
all right, Michelle.
She hasn't listened to all my questions before.
So, I mean, you know, if we can just look ahead in that with an eye to that, I'd be okay with keeping the 16th, though I'm not the one that's gonna have to hustle and make agenda changes, so,
No, I mean,
but if,
I think the goal is that you guys will have the budget book, at least the proposed budget book, well before. If there's changes, I mean, that we can put the agenda out that day, and then that night or Friday, just update the book, and then change the agenda, or amend the agenda on Friday.
does that work? Tell me, I mean, now in September, we can absorb changes better.
Can I clarify, are we wanting then to do the first read on the 20th of November for the board?
So then the first we
Okay,
read, the plan
first
would be
read,
then
and
the first
second
read be on the
would be on
20th.
the 4th?
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
as opposed to 4 and 18, okay.
And I suppose, you know, again, if we make good progress and we get through it, we won't need that last meeting and things can proceed. I just want to get on the calendar. Okay, so to just confirm, we've got 10:03, these are all 5:30 start times. We got 10:03, 10:18, 10:26, and 11:16. Did I say that correctly? All right, great. Well, thank you as always for everyone putting in the extra time to get through this. And so we've got ourselves a schedule to tackle the different aspects of the 2024 budget. So that was all I had in my report. Alderman Gould,
No report.
Alderwoman Harder. No report. Alderwoman Tice.
No report.
Okay, item 4, city administrator report. 4A is the investment report. Who is?
We
Got
have
it.
Brad Lukens on Zoom. Brad?
Hello. How are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Good. I missed you guys. It's been a long summer.
Don't know how the time flies.
I know. Here we are already. Okay. So yes, I think BOLA has 2 documents for you all to look at. One is that normal spreadsheet appearance, and the other is a blue bar graph. I thought I'd give you a quick market update. What we've been seeing out there as far, the last couple of months. We've been dealing with inflation. The Fed has been raising the Fed funds rate to bring inflation down. They took a pause in June, so kind of right at the beginning of the summer, just to see what would happen with inflation. Would it continue to decline? Would it go up? And it went up a little bit. They are going to meet again in about a week and a half. And the consensus seems to be that they'll probably raise rates another 1/4 point. They'll have 2 more meetings after that this year. And then, the jury's, of course, still out whether they'll raise rates possibly one more time. It's looking more and more likely that we'll have what they call a soft landing and we won't hit a recession. So there are a lot of concerns about that a number of months ago and beyond. So things are looking good with dodging a possible recession. If we look at one of the 2 documents that you have, the spreadsheet that you guys have seen before, you see all 8 accounts that we either currently or have managed for you guys as far as the investments go. The 2 that we don't invest anymore are the 2 project funds. So the 2018 project fund and the 19 project fund. And that's just because those funds have been spent down. You see that since towards the end of or middle of 2018, we have invested all of this actively, been very close with BOLA to do all these reinvestments month after month and year after year. And now with Michelle, I was fortunate to get to see both of them and meet Michelle in person. This was last week or the week before. Time flies, but that was great. I appreciate their time. You see there at the bottom of that spreadsheet, in total, all of these accounts have earned the city $2,519,440. I'll move over to the blue chart if there are no questions so far.
I see no questions, so please continue.
Okay. So I like to give you something kind of visual and fun to look at. So what each of these blue bars represent is how much total interest you all have earned up to that month. So this is just for 2023 to date. So if you look on the far left column, January of 23, as of that date, you had earned about $2.1 million. And if we go all the way to the far right, that is August. Everything that I show you, we tend to meet, the first week of the month. So I show you everything that's current as of the end of the prior month. So as of the end of August, you guys have earned $2,519,440. The little red toppers on each of those shows you what each of these how much you've earned each month. So you just kind of see that growing. So in January, that month it had earned 66,474, and you kind of see those numbers fluctuate a little bit. At a low of $47,000 that month, and it's kind of building back up to 52,000. So I think that's kind of neat to see, and it's just growing at a rate of about $55,000 a month. The primary reason for that is you guys a number of months ago started investing a significant amount of general funds, taking advantage of the higher interest rate environment that we've been seeing. So that's replacing a lot of your lost interest income from the project funds that have been spent down with new money and new earnings. So all is good. You are compliant, of course, with the state and the city's investment policies. And anytime something is maturing, I'm reaching out to Bola and Michelle, and we're scheduling meetings to talk about what makes sense in the market and what is available and what the city's potential needs are to make the best reinvestment decision that we can.
That's great. Yeah.
One last number that
Life is good.
I failed to give you. This year, you guys on all this have earned, and that's just at the top of this blue column graph, $444,500. So I think that's all that I have for you, but certainly open to questions.
Oh, yeah, keep it up. I'm not seeing any questions, but that's growth is good. That's great. Thank you.
All right, very good. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. I guess we'll see you next time.
Okay. All right. Take care. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. Item 4B is the 2022 audit timeline. Did we cover that? Are there additional? No, it was the audit. Never mind.
How is everybody?
Good. How are you?
Good. So this will be pretty brief. It's going to be relatively consistent with what I've done in the past, but I really just want to update you guys as to where we are with the 22 audit. So to give you guys a summary of the scope of work that we performed, the financial statement audit. What's new this year is you have a single audit. So when your federal money exceeds $750,000, you're required to have what's called a federal compliance and a report on your internal controls over financial reporting. What generated that was the American Recovery Plan Act funding. Okay, so that's going to be the one thing that's new this year versus last year in our report. The status of our work is that we're substantially complete with the financial statement audit. Okay, so overall, I think we plan to be done around June 30th. The timing got a little bit delayed because they wanted us to start about 3 months later, closer to Michelle's start date. The delays in timing really hasn't affected really the level of effort that we've had to go through, as well as I'm not aware of any impact that it has to regulatory filings. We do expect to wrap up the federal programs audit at the end of this month, so we're very close to that. We've noted no issues with how you guys spent the American Recovery Plan Act money. It was used on revenue loss. However, you do have to identify governmental expenditures that were associated with it. Some required communications that were required to go through. We did have some uncorrected misstatements. There was only one. There was an error in the compensated absences calculation in the 2021. As a result of that, about $190,000 worth of expenses were recognized prematurely. As a result, that was corrected in 2022 as a result $193,000 worth of expenses were understated as a result of that. The compensated absences is an estimate, okay? So there's a calculation associated with it. It was truly just an error. We do have a number of audit adjustments. This is consistent with last year. I think it's going to get better, and Michelle and I have talked about a way for her group to start handling some of the work that we have traditionally done. From an independence perspective, the additional work that we do doesn't affect our independence on the audit. The other two items that I'll mention quickly is that there is a lot of tax credits out there for green financing and refunding. So there has been a lot of federal funding as a result of the coronavirus relief funding, as well as the American Recovery Plan Act. Now we're starting to see a lot of funding with the infrastructure bill and through the Inflation Reduction Act. There's opportunities, significant opportunities in both of that legislation for local governments. If you guys are at all interested, we can talk about it offline. Now, the last item I hear is timing for 23. So timing for 23, we do want to try to hit that June 30th deadline. We'll start with interim in December. We will start our audit work in April, financial statements prepared in May and then issued in June. So overall, I think it's really strong progress, especially when you realize where we were about 365 days ago.
Well, I'm seeing in the memo, are we needing to schedule a special meeting?
So yes, Alderwoman Sims, we typically bring the completed audit to Ways and Means for presentation, consideration, questions, after which there is a recommendation to take it to the Board of Aldermen. Given the schedule tonight, this is the only meeting in the month of September. So in order for us to be able to at least have it done by the end of September, we would recommend consideration of a special meeting. So a number of options. Consideration of a special meeting for the presentation of the audit before it goes to the board on the 18th, or it could just go straight to the board on the 18th.
And I can share a draft of those financial statements, Michelle, and she can ultimately share them with you guys.
Thoughts of the committee? I mean, are you all available next week? I mean, are we looking at?
What date next week? Would have to be either Thursday. I mean, no, it could be earlier. I don't have to be here. I won't be here next week either, nor will Kelly. So it would be Michelle.
Well, in proposing a special meeting, what date did you have in mind?
So Kelly, what dates are open for us next week? Tuesday? It could be virtual too. Yeah.
There's a Ward 1 meeting on Tuesday,
Okay, so
unless it's earlier than 6:30.
Wednesday night, is there an opening? Wednesday night at 5:30?
There's a planning and zoning commission at 6:30, but yeah, I mean,
So
this should be
That
wrapped
should be
up.
30 minutes and
Yeah.
it's been canceled.
Oh, that was canceled?
So
Okay.
Wednesday at 5:30, which is the 13th.
That works for me.
me.
And I don't, I certainly have no problem if you want to appear virtually at your option. My office is, a quarter mile. Probably be in person, but, so, yeah, if you could do, so we've got 9/13, and then is it true, really the only thing that'll be on that one is the audit. So that'll go relatively.
Do you need me
Can
at
you
that
do
one?
that? Huh?
Is that,
What time?
5:30, Wednesday, September 13th?
All right, it's on my
Are you
calendar.
available? Okay.
Yeah, Kelly, if you could forward me the invite, that'd be great.
then I guess to the extent that you can get, documents so we can review them.
Right.
Yep, okay.
Okay, well, we're gonna see a lot of each other. Alderwoman Tice?
So I have a question. The audit that you're doing of the ARPA funds, is that just for the federal government? So do we need to file that with anyone other than the federal government? And
No, I mean, there's a process, you have to submit it through a data collection site that's housing.
Been doing that. There's a requirement quarterly to provide an update. Are you doing anything different? from what you initially said, which is the revenue replacement. So we've consistently been doing that. I think the last time they asked for an update was May, end of
Okay,
May.
but that doesn't go to the funding agencies or anyone else, so that's just, or the-
The funding through the data collection form, which is slightly different than what Bull is thinking, is you actually have to submit the results of the audit to the federal government, and then federal agencies can look at it.
okay, perfect. And then my other comment is, maybe staff is doing this, and I'm just not aware of it, but yeah, there is a ton of money, green money out there, and anything we could be doing to access that.
We've looked at that. There isn't any items that we're proposing presently in the '24 budget. Some of the items would be another EV charging station, and I think that the various committees had a discussion about that. There was consideration for, at this site, City Hall, then there was another one possibly at Brentwood Park, but the decision was just to hold off until it's built, then a reassessment. But now's a good time.
Yeah, I was gonna,
to
if
bring it
there's
up.
money from the federal government, I think now's a really good time to reconsider that, because, in the park, and then just long-term, if there's discussion of changing any of the city vehicles, if there should be planning for that could be done in conjunction with federal money that's coming out. We just shouldn't lose this opportunity to
Yeah.
to get money from someone else. But and I don't. I'm talking like there's lots of money to come, and I have no idea. But
No, there's potential for lots, and I know we've been looking at it, but I haven't seen anything come from the departments. You want to speak to that? Okay.
So yeah, like anything else, there are grants out there. The challenge is finding the right grant that we're going to fit for, getting the time to do the grant, and then especially a federal one, it's all the requirements related to the grants on the back end. It's definitely something that I know the Sustainability Commission is looking at. We're going to be talking about our priorities at our next commission meeting for 24, 25. And I know we've already been talking about sort of what sort of funding is out there to help with some of those initiatives.
that's the right place. So that's. I'm glad to know that's going on.
Yeah, and Eric, one other thing, there's, under the Inflation Reduction Act, these aren't grants, these are tax credits. And these tax credits are direct refundable tax credits to municipal governments. Historically, these tax credits didn't apply to nonprofits or municipal governments. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, they've changed that language. So you now can get direct credits. Those credits range between 30 to 70% of what your initial cost was.
Should we give that report, or should we have maybe you
I
show
can-
up at the Sustainability Committee and make sure that they understand that? Or is that something that
I think staff will take care
staff
of that.
can take care of? Okay.
I can
great.
I'll share the scores and highlights of that legislation with BOLA.
We have it, the municipal.
I'd enjoy seeing that as well. So thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Revisit that topic a week from, well, Wednesday. Was there anything else on that topic? Are we moving on? Okay, item 4C is the Citizen Budget Forum.
We have been promoting the Citizen Budget Forum through the different social media platforms that the city has. We've also been promoting this through Nextdoor, an awareness amongst our residents to either bring things to your attention at your ward meetings, an awareness for you all individually if there are items that you have not brought to our attention throughout the year that you feel we need to consider during this budget process. So the Citizen Budget Forum is an opportunity for maybe residents who are in attendance who would like to speak to also speak. And a reminder that you all bring it up at your ward meetings.
Well, if there's anyone in the audience or online that you would like to take the opportunity to call to attention, anything we should spend tax dollars on, now would be an opportunity to do that. Just state your name and your Place of residence.
Lois Truman, 8710 Rosalie Avenue. Um, first of all, my little neighbor who is turning 10, when she was 7, and this is primarily Eric knows this whole issue, but she wrote a letter to the mayor about the broken pieces of the park equipment at Broughton Park. And she was 7 at the time. And her mom had told her about a steering wheel that used to be on there when she was a little girl and played there and yada, yada. And it is still totally nothing done yet. Now, Eric did give me a reason before at some time, but I couldn't remember what the reason was, what they were holding off to do. So I don't know, but I just wanted, I told her I would bring that forward, that's something that is, this little kid is gonna be in government somewhere someday. So I wanna show her the due process and that her voice is heard. So that was the first thing I was gonna say. The other thing, I'm wondering if we can take some of the budget to maybe put even more into our policing while we're having these rashes of crime and everything. But I don't know if more police is the answer or what. But a few neighbors mentioned that to me, that they wish there would be some way the city could have, we thought about cameras or thought about, I mean, it's just, it eludes everybody about what to do. We have our own theory what to do about porch pirates, which is not real wholesome, but we may resort to that. But the other thing is the crime with the cars and the actual organized system. And I know our chief is doing a fabulous job and his crew with how they're attacking and doing and now identifying the license plates of cars and all of these things. That's all very positive. And I just, as a citizen and other people that I've talked with, are in favor of even more support of money, finances or whatever, going toward the police and safety kind of thing for our community. So I just said I would be here tonight and say that. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Stu Clark. I live on St. Clair. And I think we should spend a little money on the cycling infrastructure in Brentwood because we're about to hook up with the Great Rivers Greenway. And I know when we said that the trail and the tunnel system is going to hook up to our greenway system, to our cycling paths, walking paths, I don't think those paths are really well marked in terms of cycling. And I think we could get ahead of potential problems by trying to determine which streets we want people on if they're on a bike, and that'll pull them maybe off of some of these thin, because the initial bike paths weren't really set up for the cycling that's going on today, and certainly weren't set up for possibly the input that's going to come from that tunnel. So trying to lead people through Brentwood, both from the tunnel to, let's say, Hanley Road. So at some point, they might go down Swim Club Lane, and they also might turn and then go through Hanley Industrial, and then they might end up over either by Lowe's or by Home Depot. Those two crossings that we have of Hanley Road, where we right now really don't have something set up. And there'll be people riding through Brentwood, as there are now, going to that. And the flip side on the west side too. So I think, you know, budgeting money for signage and also for setting out clear street markings on, okay, you're a bike rider, you just came through this tunnel, here's where you can go safely, and this is where we would expect people to go. So that will cost a little bit of money in signage, and that'll be on us, not so much with the support of Great Rivers Greenway and that group. So that's my comment.
Is there anyone online?
I mean,
Okay. Well, thank you for attending tonight and giving us your input. All of my electronics have gone to password. Okay, so seeing that there's no other comments for the citizen forum, we'll move on to the next item, which is 4D, and that's the proposed fiscal year 2024 capital improvement budget for preliminary discussions.
All right. So thank you. The idea of bringing this to the Ways and Means Committee early prior to the budget presentation was twofold. Is if you remember last year, we kind of talked about the effect of Brentwood Bound and the debt service had not only on every fund. And so how basically we talked about early on in the discussions with Brentwood Bound, how we would have to really kind of tighten our belts, especially as it comes to the next few years as we're going through debt payment. And then secondarily, you know, we just wanted to kind of make sure this was brought ahead of time. So if there's big changes, if there's things that that the board wanted to see into the capital budget, we can kind of make those changes before the budget book goes out. So that was kind of the main reason. I'm going to make sure I do everything right. I don't want to lose my presentation. So the first part is this year we have about $3.5 million in revenue coming into the coming into the capital fund, Fund 40. Based on estimate from the sales tax, does see an increase thanks to the Meridian TIF being paid off. It's about $130,000 there. We increase a little bit of the sales of city property, primarily because if we're going to replace police cruisers and things like that, we'll see revenue coming in for the sale of those. So we want to make sure we captured that. And in the next year, I know the police and fire are really actively pursuing some of those ARPA grants for public safety. So I know that they have tagged a couple big grants to make sure that they get those in place. So, and we're successful this year with those, so we're confident we'll see that. And then some of the other things are minor, like the recycling grant and things like that. With that being said, if you look at it in our 2024 capital expenditures, 57% of our revenue goes to debt service. And it's a large chunk. I mean, that is half of our funding. So that doesn't leave a lot of money to spread out to other places. Computer, and we understand the importance of the computer, the data services, that infrastructure is the other 18%, which leaves basically 25% for capital purchases. So we've cut basically down to a quarter. And so that doesn't leave a whole lot of money if you really think about it. As we talked last year, the board did approve utilizing fund balance for the sanitation truck this year and the fire engine and police and fire radios in 2025. So we're already kind of cutting into some of that fund balance that we already have. So that kind of just gives you a general introduction to the capital budget. And feel free to stop me at any point. Please, yeah.
do you want questions along the way?
It'd be easier.
Yeah, questions along the way, and please.
It'd be a lot easier, yeah.
Unless it gets away from us, I'm informal, so just please ask away.
Okay, so on the ARPA grants, I noticed that this year there is, I guess it's 300,000 of ARPA grants. Is there any ARPA money left after this and this 300,000 we have in the capital budget? Or is this the last of it?
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's all runs through the governor's office, and they've only made a commitment for next year. Is that correct, Chief?
So I know that we've heard from fire chief and police chief that there might be additional allocations made for public safety. And there is a dollar amount, I think it's 100,000 possibly, but because that decision hasn't been made yet, we do know that both departments will be applying for it, but there is nothing that we've heard coming from the federal government other than the two that Andrew mentioned earlier.
Great. And then my other question is, there was a lot of push at the state level last year about the grocery tax, and what would the elimination of the grocery tax do to Fund 40?
That is coming up in the presentation. But basically, we're thinking about $3 million for the city loss in grocery tax. 17% of, thanks to Michelle, 17% would be the capital fund, would go to the capital fund, so it's about $500,000. Yeah. So the next thing is just kind of taking a look at each department and what they have recommended for funding and things that were deferred during the process. Because obviously, our job, and I should start with this, our job as the city is to bring you a balanced budget. So unless you give us the approval to deficit fund or utilize fund balance, which you did next year, we obviously can't do that in any other year. So we obviously had a deficit coming into this year. We worked together as a staff to reduce some of that. And so this is kind of what you see by department. So next year, the SCBA compressor, in 25, the fire truck and some technical rescue equipment. And in 26, I have a few things: the ballistic helmets, the PPE for the turnout gear, radio replacement, and then the thermal imaging cameras. What was deferred is three big things: the Tahoes for both of the chief and the assistant chief, the command staff, and then the fire training facility. And just we had to defer all that, and the total cost is $637,000. Police is a little bit easier. Police is basically focused on cruisers. You know, they to run their fleet properly, they say they need to replace 4 cruisers each year, and you know, it's part of the vehicle replacement program that was approved by the board a few years ago that said once their vehicles hit 50,000, they could be replaced if funding is available. So we've been trying that. I don't think we've had a year we've been able to replace all their vehicles that have already hit 50,000 because of the funding based on Brentwood bound. So 24, we're able to get 3 cruisers into the budget, only 1 in 25, and then 2 in 26. And so what that does, sorry, my numbers are backwards. So what that, oh no, that's what's been deferred. I apologize. So 3 next year, 1 in 25, and 2 in 26 is what is being funded, which then defers 6 cruisers of what they asked for, which is $330,000. Public Works, again, is more difficult. We split that up in 2 things. So the first is the City Hall roof replacement. We put the whole roof replacement into the budget for next year. We hope, as we mentioned before, that might be something FEMA will replace, will fund as part of an alternate project. We won't know that for probably another couple months, unfortunately. FEMA is very slow in things that they want to do. The HVAC council chambers system for here, we did kind of put a Band-Aid on it for this year, Dan said, which is why we noticed a little bit cooler, but it is, Dan's still saying it's kind of on its last legs. A dump truck, which is one of our main snow removal trucks. The fuel tank at the police department, tire balancer, and then we put in money in both Fund 40 and Fund 50 for the Public Works and Park Maintenance Garage. Obviously, we know that that garage is in phase 1 of Green Street's redevelopment, so we have to figure out a design at some point. That leaves in 25, another half of the roof replacement, pothole patch, crack sealer, technical rescue equipment. And then you see kind of what has been deferred. A truck, a dump truck, 2 dump trucks, a regular F-250, the mobile boom platform, pavement roller, street sweeper, and then sanitation truck number 3. In discussion of specifically during the meetings, the mobile boom platform, the pavement roller, and the street sweeper, while we know there's things that would be beneficial to the city, it's also things that we can rent. So that's why they kind of got pushed behind, knowing that if we had to make budget, that was a way to make budget. All things, and obviously the street sweeper is the one that's got the most discussion, are things that would be great to get back into a budget. So that total is $739,000.
So right now you have roof replacement for City Hall on both 24 and 25. Why is that?
I lost my,
Yeah, it was there for a second.
I know.
Oh, add capital
There it
or
is.
computers.
I don't know why it's not switching to the next slide. I know you all have this presentation, right?
Yes.
And I'm not sure why it's not going to my next slide. I think, to be honest, we did this presentation first in June, ready for like the July, I think, meeting, at which time, as we made a couple changes, one of the changes we made was to move the roof into all of one fiscal year.
24,
So the
it
25
should come
is-
out at
yep.
25.
But the dollar amounts are right for the deferred.
Okay.
I made sure I do that. Sorry, I'm just upset as we continue to have these issues. So the sidewalks, streets and sidewalks is, again, a bigger one. So we do have money for Litzinger Road sidewalk and curbs in next year, the McKnight Road microsurface, and sidewalk work in 24, 25, and 26. In 25, we have the Hanley Industrial Court right by CrossFit, and that's a, yeah, I plugged it up on the other computer just in case too. Sorry, thank you. That's right in front of CrossFit. It's a concrete slab, so that's why it's there. And then 26 is another concrete slab in front of Little Fishes. What we lose, what's been deferred, is the City Hall parking lot. And a lot of discussion there is the visioning session and what might happen with the library too. So it made sense to defer that at this time. More concrete in Hanley Industrial Court right in front of Hanley Park and on Strassner. And then the police parking lot. The police parking lot, the Rose Avenue Bridge, which is basically from Brentwood Boulevard into the Target shopping into Pace Properties there, and then street sealants. So all the street sealants, again, had been removed or deferred, and that was $1.8 million. So a bulk of what we're seeing is in streets and sidewalks. So, excuse me. So kind of just give a quick snapshot of Fund 40, is if you saw, our fund balance after next year estimated to be $5 million. It drops to 3.2 because we decided, the board decided to cash fund, utilize fund balance for the fire truck and the radios. And so that's why you see the hit, and then we slowly get back to building it. But we're really, if you saw, next year we have about a $4,000 net bottom line, positive net bottom line, and then again, another $4,000 in 27. So you kind of see where our net bottom lines are just not growing. So the fund balance isn't going to grow for a while. The deferred capital, we're deferring $3.5 million over the next 3 years. And in addition to that, once you defer that 3.5, then the stuff in 27 and 28, also we have to look at and what takes precedence. We have an ambulance coming up in 27, I believe. We have a couple other big items coming up, another trash truck coming up. And so as we look at all these things that are coming up, it's a cumulative effect of what's happening. So if we want to do something and try to take a chunk out of this, the department, the staff has kind of come up with some different ideas. And one would be, we could use fund balance from Fund 40. How much would be a question and determination? But some of the considerations to think about if we wanted to do that is, again, the grocery sales tax. And so we're estimating about $510,000 that we would lose in the capital fund. Our debt service payment increases in the capital fund in 29 and 30 over the 2 years. It will increase $400,000. So by 2031, we'll see $400,000 more in debt service. Nowhere in this budget have we talked about funding for a public works or park maintenance garage. And so there have to be some thought about that. The fire training facility, as we discussed a little bit earlier, has been moved out of the first 3 years, and if that becomes a priority project. And then again, the ambulance replacement scheduled for 2028 is again another big chunk of money. So if we talk about using fund balance from capital fund, those are some things we'd have to consider. Other things we could do is we could do a transfer from the general fund. We are projecting our 23 fund balance to be about $10.5 million. We have to remember we're holding $1.4 million for St. Louis County. And we're still working through that, and we hope to have that resolved soon, because I think all of us would like to know what that number is. The good news is we see almost an additional $400,000 in the Meridian TIF. So that was plugged into the budget, which gives you about $9.4 million in a fund balance at the end of 24. Our fund balance policy is 50% of our expenditures in the general fund, so we're a little bit about 14.2 million, so 15% is 7.1, which means we'd have $2.2 million of extra funding if we wanted to make a transfer to the capital fund. We could do a one-time transfer. We could say, hey, over the next 3 years, we're going to do $250,000. But the things to think about as we consider that is, once again, the grocery sales tax. The general fund takes obviously the bigger hit of funding, and so 58% of that 3 million is $1.7 million that we might be losing if that gets passed. The other,
Oh, if that, is that, are there updates on that? Proposed
Updates on-
on the grocery tax or the elimination of it? I mean, is it going to,
We know that a majority of the legislators voted when the language was included in a bill for that, that there is a strong possibility that it will be reintroduced during the next legislative cycle. So I believe that the Municipal League is being prepared. There have been meetings that have been held last month to start to educate legislators about the impact that that would have, not just to cities in St. Louis County, St. Charles County, but across the state. And therefore, that would not be wise for them to do that, because the impact, those who have debt service to pay, and municipalities who rely primarily on that. Compounding that is also the property tax. So we're just being risk averse because we're not certain what would happen. But if it were to be introduced in a bill and then passed and then signed by the governor, typically there's a lag in when it would go into effect. It could be a year, it could be 2 years. We just feel the need to bring you, up to date on that. And I know that the mayor is actively involved in talking to other mayors across the region on, educating. If you remember, there was an article that he wrote in the Post-Dispatch, and we also published that in the city's newsletter, trying to make sure everybody's sufficiently educated about what kind of devastation it would mean to city budgets. So we have a dollar figure, but we don't know. We continue to monitor it just to make sure we stay current on what the developments could be.
yeah, the other thing out there is SB 190, which is the limiting of property tax for residents over 65. While, again, that's something we're watching, we're not sure what the effect's going to be in the grand scheme, and Bola and Michelle will correct me if I'm wrong, hopefully, is while it won't have a large effect on the sales, the tax we're bringing in, because we're basically sales tax, it will affect pension. And so as pension dollars are dropped, then we'd have to consider how to replace those pension dollars within our current budget, which then might affect the general fund. So that's the big question there. The other option is possibly the Economic Development Fund. And we talked about this a lot. And one of the things we talked about is with a $5 million fund balance at the end of 23. And again, there's things that are going to be discussed through that fund coming up, I'm sure. Is there a way to maybe use just a portion of it? And so Michelle kind of came up with this 5% thought. If we use 5% of the fund, which is around $250,000, our investments are returning right around, I think Andrew said 7% right now. And so maybe we can replenish what we're taking out of that fund through investments. And that way we're not decreasing the fund balance. It won't increase, but at least it won't decrease. Again, we could do this as a one-time or multi-year sort of transfer if this is something that the committee or commission and the board wants us to look at. As a reminder, this would be something that would have to go to the Economic Development Sales Tax Board for approval, which is why we're bringing it here as well. And then, again, the grocery sales tax, it's kind of the broken record. 17% of that hits the Economic Development Fund. So again, we might be looking at another $500,000 hit to that fund as well. So I'm here with tons of happy news. So I apologize for that. This kind of just shows the deferment of that $3.5 million by year. What we pulled out of FY24, it was one command vehicle and the training facility year one from the fire department, the one police cruiser, the dump truck, the boom, the sweeper, and then the streets. And so 24 is the 1.3 were deferred, 25 was almost $1 million, and 26 was 1.1. That gets you to that 3.5. So that is kind of what we're looking at as staff and as departments in the city. And so the question that we had more than anything else is there an appetite to do anything. And so we kind of came up with some different options that we've kind of discussed. We have a balanced budget. We're prepared to move forward with the balanced budget. We just wanted to kind of let you guys know what that meant. And so that's where it is. We could utilize Fund 40 fund balance. As I said, we had about $3.2 million after next year. I wouldn't suggest we use all of that, but if we want to take a chunk, $500,000, $1 million, because there's something, say, hey, let's do a little bit, see where that gets us for the next budget year. Transfer for the general fund, same idea. We, 2.2, but maybe the smaller part, not a chunk. Or the transfer, kind of like that 5% transfer for the economic development sales tax fund in order to try to replenish it. Or we could do a combination of multiple things. I think the idea of what we want to bring to you tonight is just kind of a snapshot of where we're at and thoughts about how you wanted staff to move forward as we're getting ready to present the budget next month.
Yeah, so I've got a question on the street sealants, just being on Public Works Committee. Most of the time that we hear Dan talk about the street sealants is that eventually, if you're not sealing the streets, then eventually it's just sort of throwing good money after bad because they're too far gone and you're going to end up having to mill and overlay them again sooner. So, I mean, by deferring these, are we creating a situation where it's going to be even costlier because we're going to have to just mill and overlay all the streets?
I think if I understand correctly, and again, Bola can jump in if I'm wrong, is the idea of the street sealant is to extend the life of the streets and keep them in as good a condition as possible for as long as time.
Correct.
What that probably means is, I think a mill and overlay is 15 to 20 years.
Right, and you know what, Dan is online,
Oh, good.
so
Dan
perhaps
can answer that for
he
me.
can answer that directly. Dan?
Okay. I think I'm here, right?
Yep,
We hear you.
you.
Okay. Yeah, to answer your question, you are correct. If you go too far in time, then it isn't any good. You may as well just wait and do a mill and overlay. Usually you can do like the MAQS sealant, which we'll be doing here in a next week or two. You can do streets that are up to around 8 years in age, and it's still a good application to put that over them to preserve them. So the ones we're doing in a couple weeks, those are about 6 years old. And then the ones that Eric's talking about deferring, they would be the ones that still fall within that range. If they're too far out of the range, we just kick them out and then just keep monitoring them, and we'll eventually wind up having to do a mill and overlay. And some of the streets that we would probably want to seal, we'll hold off on anyways because of the big MSD project. If they're going to tear it up in
Yeah.
2026 through 2029, we're keeping an eye on those. Or if there's Missouri American doing a project, maybe something we wanted to do, we won't do. We just have to be a little bit fluid each year and make changes as needed.
So these that you're deferring, the ones that you're deferring though are the ones that you feel confident that even if we did defer them for 2024 through 2026, we could still be within that window that if we funded it in 2027, they wouldn't be past the time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I believe so. And like I said, we evaluate them each year before we put together an RFP, or if we, like in the case of the Donaldson contract, that's a sole source. But before we give them the list, we go out and reevaluate them because some of them could have, slipped too far. Maybe some of them aren't bad enough, and we can kick those out another year.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I had another question, but I'll try to come back to it.
Yeah, Alderman Tice.
So I hear a lot from residents that we're doing all this stuff in the park, which is amazing, but we're not sweeping the streets. They're not in as good a repair as they have been. Now, granted, our citizens probably have been really spoiled with how well we have taken care of our streets, both paving them and keeping them clean. But that's sort of something I hear, and every year it seems like Dan's the one who takes the biggest, that department defers stuff. Every time most of the stuff. And I even looked back last year and I laughed really hard because the proposed capital budget, when we did it in this spiral bound thing for this year, was $54,700. And there's way more than $54,700 even that we're gonna fund, plus the deferred stuff. So I guess I just want to say that that is something that I hear a lot about. And as Alderman Gould said, if we don't make some of these investments, is it going to cost us more later when we have even more things? It just kicks the can. So that's just a thought there.
Is that a comment? Were you expecting a response, or?
No,
Okay.
it's just a comment that it's sort of like this, a little like the Citizen Budget Forum. That's just something that I hear a lot about when I'm out walking my dogs, which is when people stop me.
So are you looking for direction to us to pick off this menu that you have up here for tonight? Is that?
I think the idea is the thought from this committee is, do you want to see us try to fund additional projects through any of these options that we've laid out? Do you want us just to go forward with the balanced budget that you see in front of you? I understand. I mean, I completely understand what everyone's saying. You talk to every director, department director, and they'll say everything that they have in there is critical to their organization, and it's probably true. We are just trying to be realistic with what we have funding-wise and realistic with expectations that we can present and provide for the city.
For one, I wake up at night thinking about that grocery tax. I mean, the SB 190, I feel like something like that would cut the legs out from us. I mean, if we are, if we can down the road, kicks the can down the road, and it'll cascade later. But I am reluctant to, dip into these funds beyond, option one, for that reason. Because and what a difference a year makes. I mean, when we know a lot more, I mean, I would just feel that's where I come from. That's where I start. But I hear what you're saying, Alderman Tice, that, we need to provide infrastructure and services to our citizens. That's where I start. What are your thoughts?
Looking at me,
Yeah, I'm looking
I
at
would
the-
I would
I-
agree. I think I would agree with you. I sort of think, in some ways, I think the transferring the Economic Development Fund money is, of the options, is sort of the most comfortable to me. But then, because we can replenish, if we're assuming that we would replenish it by the investment income that we get, but if that's going to be also reduced by 17%, if the grocery tax comes into play, and we're not even talking about the senior money.
Property tax, yeah.
Is that going to then make that go negative later? Or if
I don't
we
think it's
did,
going to go negative. There just won't be as much to reinvest, which is, we have the layered approach that Brad subscribes to. There just won't be as much to reinvest. But so you also know that you are privy to additional information regarding the reserves, so to speak, the money above and beyond what we're using to satisfy the debt in the economic development sales tax, that at this time, it's allocated for something else? You all nodding? Okay, good. I hear everything you're saying. However, I also want to say that before the city took on the Brentwood Bound project, the city knew, we didn't know about the grocery sales tax or the property sales tax, but we did know that things would be tight for several years. And I think as part of Eric's presentation, you talk about when the debt service fund the payment will go up by 400,000. What year is that?
2030,
20?
2030
2030. So that's some time away.
time, but let's,
So
things we think about as we put together these budgets.
It's a big increase.
it's a big chunk, but you know, there is a balance that could be struck primarily because, and I'm thinking more so about the general fund, that the fund balance policy says 50%. And we are at, what is it, 70?
Close to 70.
76. So I think that gives the board a little room to be flexible if they want to be, to do some, not all. And so if you want each department to come and advocate for what is on the list, which makes your job even more difficult, because there needs to be a way to determine what is absolutely priority number one. We can't fund everything. I would recommend against funding all the 1.3 million for '24, but I think there's a way to make a decision on which items on this list gets funded first. You know, is it the police cruisers? Is it the dump truck? Is it the street sweeper? Which noise is loudest that you are hearing from the residents, and also from the perspective of the department directors, which ones do they think is very critical to the operation of their department? So I think there's a way to allocate a certain percentage, not a lot, or you just say we'll reassess during the next fiscal year. And you all always, I think we've brought budget amendments to you. So if things happen, you know, we had the flood, and the board allocated money to repair Lynn Wind Trail and the creek there. So there is always an opportunity to reconsider during the year after we have better direction on what the General Assembly is going to do on the grocery tax. So there are a number of moving parts here for your consideration.
Alderwoman Tice?
So I guess thank you for that. And I think maybe reconsidering midway through the year might make sense. At least we would know by June what the legislature did. But I would encourage us to consider all of this in June, because any one of these ideas that we hear as a solo idea is a really good idea, and we would fund it because it's a really good idea that we hear in June. But in September, October, November, it's really hard to make the call. So I encourage us, if we do reconsider something mid-year, to bring it all and not just one-offs.
And my view, and correct, it would be that I think as a committee, we would determine the extent to which we'd make additional funds available from whatever balance, and then sorry, Ball, I'll put it back in your lap to Thunderdome it out, you know, amongst the direct. I mean, I feel like that's the team is better situated
We can do that.
for that. But you know, in terms of what we would recommend, in terms of additional funds that we'd be made available for, you know, for projects. But given where we are, I run to the conservative of just wanting to. I'm inclined to proceed with option one for now, and then we can reassess later in light of the uncertainty of what might happen, what the state assembly may do.
Yeah, and that's actually what my other comment was, as you reminded me. The one that I think I agree philosophically may be an option to consider is the Economic Development Fund, because there is a way to sort of regulate some of that pressure that it puts on the system. The general fund, we just don't, it's just such an unknown. I wouldn't feel comfortable even
If
touching
you
that.
remember, the wording in those issuance documents was so worded with the direction from the mayor and the Board of Aldermen to allow the city to spend that money on
Yeah.
things that you
No,
all
no,
think are important.
And it makes sense.
Right.
Nice that we added that language.
Yeah.
Is that just on the 2019s? Oh,
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
So at this point, is the recommendation to,
Move forward.
forward with the capital plan as presented? Is that what I'm hearing from the
And
committee? And then we can
reassess.
reassess. Do you need a motion to that effect?
That would be great.
Okay, Chair would entertain a motion as to 2024 capital fund options to move forward with the capital plan as presented at this time.
so moved.
Second?
Okay, there's been a motion by Alderwoman Tice and a second by Alderman Gould. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you.
It's a lot of work.
Thank you for that presentation. So we'll move on to, where'd you go? Item 5, which department reports, 5A are the financial statements. Who's leading us through that topic?
Michelle.
Great.
Have multiple statements in front of you. We are all caught up in the department. So the most recent one is July. You have revenue and expenditure analysis on there. I don't see anything glaring that I think I need to bring to your attention, but do you have any questions?
Just generally, by way of summary, I mean, revenues are good.
Everything seems to be on target. I mean,
Okay.
I've sort of done some analysis and looked at the last 3 years and the last 5 years, and everything does seem to be on target. I don't see anything giving me any major heartburn at the moment, especially by mid-year. So, great, thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, item 6 on the agenda is the consent agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the items? It looks like there are 2 items. One's the minutes approval and the 6B are the quarterly ambulance fee write-offs for the first and second quarter of 2023.
Motion to approve consent agenda?
Second.
Right, there's been a motion by Alderman Gould and a second by Alderwoman Tice to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder? I'm going to abstain. Okay. And Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 3-0.
Okay, great, thank you. And then,
One abstention. Yeah.
then item 7A is off the agenda, and then so we'll move on to item 8, new business. 8A is a request for the disposition of public records documents.
I will take that, Alderman Sims. This is a project that our intern, Penny Jarvis, worked on this summer. She went up into the attic and found, I don't think this is an exaggeration, hundreds of boxes where she and her mom, Gina, reviewed the documents of those boxes and made sure that the city was staying in compliance with the state's record retention compliance document. And as such, we have identified, they have identified a number of documents that the city can destroy. However, we need board authorization before we would proceed at a cost of almost $900. So the recommendation is for approval, allowing staff to initiate the destruction of these documents. And there's a detailed list of what those are.
And so all of that's consistent with whatever our record-keeping
Right.
policy or
State-
statute or
state destruction
obligations
record.
are.
Right.
There are no, Mickey Mantle baseball cards or memorabilia, any treasures in there. They're like,
Hopefully not.
I mean, I think it makes sense to me. Are there any questions on that? Not seeing any, so we Chair entertain a motion to recommend to approve the disposition of the records listed on the Exhibit A of her Brentwood records for destruction and the financing of same.
So moved.
Okay, there's been a motion by Alderwoman Tice, a second by Alderman Gould. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder? Yes. Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of four.
Okay, great. 8B is the reallocation of capital improvement funds for purchase of technical rescue equipment, Paratech Interstate Motorway Vehicle Stabilization Kits.
All right, I guess we'll spin it this way. There you go. Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to present to the committee. The documents for the proposal are at your positions. I believe the important part of this discussion, notwithstanding the budget presentation, is this project was proposed in April and May with a presentation date in June. With the absence of meetings over the summer, this is the first time you're hearing about this. We were basing this project off reducing capital for next year, which now doesn't exist. However, we have found a way to find some money to purchase this equipment, which doesn't exist in the Central Corridor or the region. Essentially, this is a Paratech strut system, manual strut system, that will support anything that travels on the road, air, or track in this region. About the only thing this system will not hold up is a fully loaded locomotive. That would be lifted with a crane anyway, but any other type of vehicle that passes through Brentwood or traverses any of the interstate systems, this system will be able to operate with it. And being the only department in the region with it, we anticipate being a regional resource for this. And our folks have the training for it. So how did we get here? Through robust data analysis within the strategic plan in objective and goal 4, which is the community risk analysis, through Fire Marshal Hammer as well, being in all the businesses, we are finding that there are some things that happen within the city, within the businesses, that were unknown before just because we weren't in the buildings. Industrial processes, certain types of chemicals. So there are explosion hazards. We have equipment for that, but most of the business that we run are EMS calls, vehicle accidents. So that's what this addresses. We were successful, as we discussed previously, in ARPA funding to purchase that UTV earlier this year. The state will eventually reimburse us $20,000 for that. You were gracious enough to allow us to purchase airbags back in February. We got a substantial savings on that project with the trade-in value of our current airbags. We saved almost $14,000 on the price just by trading in the old bags. With the $20,000 reimbursement from the ARPA fund, we believe that we have found funding to purchase this interstate package for the quoted amount, and then reduce the need to actually ask for this in the fiscal 24 capital budget. So as presented, the package is $18,515.69. Our recommendation from the fire department is to request approval to purchase this and reallocate capital funds with the savings from the ARPA fund and then the airbag savings for trade-in.
So why does no one else have this? And why does Brentwood need to be the one that's the regional resource for this? I know we have a boat, and a lot of people don't have a boat. Is there a reason that I know it's not a huge dollar amount, but with the discussion we just had, is there a reason that we need to be the ones to have this in the region?
Quite frankly, and I'll throw myself into the mix here, most departments don't do data analysis like we do now. It's something to say, well, we need that. Well, why do you need it? I can show instances with call data analysis where this package would have been beneficial. We can still do the work, it's just safer, and we're able to do it better and faster with this particular package. I can't speak to other departments why they have not purchased this, but all of our folks in the fire department are very highly trained in technical rescue, and this is one of the NFPA 1670 disciplines, which is interstate and motorway vehicle rescue. We can use this on cars that go through Brentwood Boulevard as well. We just had a gentleman run the curb and run through the telephone pole in front of the firehouse today coming off of Brentwood Boulevard. High rate of speed would have cut his car in half. Fortunately, the first pole stopped him before he was able to keep going. Okay. But yeah, other departments, yes. If you have an interstate responsibility, you should probably have this. We assist a lot with Clayton on 170. We assist a lot with Richmond Heights and Ladue on Interstate 64. We assist Shrewsbury and Webster on Interstate 44. So we have the interstate traffic. We also have the commercial vehicles up and down Brentwood and up and down Manchester. Manchester Road, I know what the posted speed limit is. General observation, people are driving faster through there because it's a lot smoother and there's no construction anymore. So if we buy this stuff, it will get used. It will get used.
So then what was the recommendation out of the Public Safety Committee? Because they're sort of getting the weeds with like, we're just the money people. And
This is the first committee it's coming to. It'll go to public safety as well. You're just having a meeting earlier than public safety. So you can defer action until Chief Birdie's had a chance to present it at the public safety meeting on the 27th? September 27th, coming up? Yes.
But we thought we'd take the opportunity for this committee because there is finance involved and it is capital funding and we are getting towards the end of the year.
If it is deferred, does that cause any issue of being able to put an order in and getting it funded before the end of the year, or?
Mindful that we have like 10 meetings.
Exactly.
With
This
the,
shouldn't be a concern for this committee at all.
No, I get that. So what we're asking is for this year, 23 capital funds, to reallocate funds in 23 to purchase it. I hate using the term supply chain, but, you know, manufacturers are manufacturers, and I don't know where they're getting their stuff or with their, you know, staff, but there is, I won't say a significant lead time on this, but generally when we were going to present this back in June, we were told that if you get the order in probably by the 1st of July, you may have it by the end of the year.
Okay. I mean, I would like to, personally, I'd like to have the Public Safety Committee take this up on, as it relates to whether or not they feel it is a, I mean, I understand you've saved some money and that's fantastic, but is that really the right project to put it toward? And is this a necessity for the department? Seems like it could be useful, but maybe more of a nice to have. I guess the question that I have is, are there other departments that could also, you know, benefit from reallocating some of these funds, you know, from the savings that we had in the fire department? Can those funds be used for another department that might have a need as well? That, to the point of Alderwoman Tice earlier, let's look across the departments.
It would just go to fund balance, and then it would be reallocated amongst everybody else. So that's a valid point.
I'll note as a practical matter, if this public safety is September 27th, we have a meeting on October 3rd, you know, and then it could
Yes.
be,
Come back.
Come back
it could
up.
come back up, you know, not however many days that is. I'm not very good at math.
I mean, yeah, and it's not a significant, I mean, it's,
Because it wouldn't be on the board's approval for the next meeting because
No.
public safety,
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
so.
it's not like you're asking for another fire truck. I understand that it's, you know, but.
The way things are working right now, I don't know how long.
But as we just went through, every penny counts. And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
one, I appreciate that you were able to apply for grants and sell some of the other stuff to get this
And
savings.
then
So,
a sidebar with the grant, you know, the reason, I'm told the reason the state reopened those ARPA funds is because they didn't have that many applicants for the first round, because the application process and the administrative paperwork is a nightmare. I mean, I assisted Ronnie on some of it, but he probably should not have hair like I've got from pulling it out. I mean, it is comprehensive, and sometimes it's hard to get a hold of a physical person to talk to like, why do I have to fill this out when I filled it out over here? I think it's an archaic system that the portal operates on, but that's me. So, but we were successful, and believe they reopened that because they didn't give out enough money, and they were really focusing this round on, we want the volunteer fire departments. to really submit and get what you need, but they don't want to work through the portal.
Being that it doesn't sound like we'd be prejudiced by the wait, I'd be inclined, I mean, even though I know I'm on that, I'd like to hear, have public safety weigh in first, and then we'll have a quick turnaround, we can take this up again on the October 3rd meeting, which is the following Wednesday. Just because I'd like to run it up that flagpole too.
Sure. And for those that are new and/or watching, when we have equipment, like our boat and all, that is allowed for mutual aid, does the city receive funding when that's happening?
No.
I know the answer to that, I just,
But I'm on the 8th floor of the CIBC building, and Clayton has the tall ladder, so it works both ways.
The automatic aid system in St. Louis County is very, very productive and very beneficial.
And it's a great thing for our
It is.
communities that we do this. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't have this and that we should have it to share, but just, I agree with Alderwoman Sims that let's have
Yeah,
public
we'll be more
safety
than happy
guided.
to present it to public safety. They'll get the same presentation here, and then if we get their blessing, then we'll come back and talk to you on the 3rd.
Sounds good. So you don't need a motion from us to that effect, do we? Okay.
I've
Good,
moved it.
okay.
We'll see
Thank
back
you
on
very
that
much
one.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think there was a duplicate.
Was that a duplicate? Are B and C the same? They
Yes, I
kind of
moved-
look like
I
it.
moved it over to public safety.
Oh, no, but.
Oh, no, there are two notations. There's a 8B and an 8C,
same
and they
thing.
appear the
Same
same.
thing.
So we don't need to.
You don't need to
We can
take
skip
any-
on from
You're not asking for two of
8C.
them.
That's right. That's right.
Got it,
It's not
okay. Got it. Okay, well, so that's done, that concludes new business, and then item 9 of the agenda is citizen comment. Would any of the citizens in the audience care to, if you make additional comments, please come on down, or anyone who is listening online?
I just have a question about.
Come on, if you're,
Lois Truman, 8710 Rosalie Avenue. When they're saying the fire training thing is one of them that's being deferred, is that the thing that the mayor was talking about, that we're going in with
Two other cities.
two other cities? Is that the thing that's being deferred, or is that?
The thing that's being deferred. However, even though there's been approval for the creation of the Central Fire Corps group and the approval of the intergovernmental agreement, I think that there is an understanding between the three cities that, and I believe there's also an expectation that it was no one's intention to fund it this year. So funding, and the other two cities, I want to say, have recently adopted their budget for '24. So serious consideration for funding for that would probably not be until the '25 budget. So there's still time for this body to
Okay,
reconsider
okay.
that.
Thank you. I should have asked that afterwards, but anyway,
no,
thank you.
I'm glad that you came forward.
Like St. Clair Avenue. When we look at budgeting, I noticed we were looking at out to 2030. Is there any increased revenue built into that process from the development that we're doing on Manchester Road at all?
So our budget goes out for 3 years. So we're not at that point where we're forecasting any new revenue from the redevelopment. But when we get closer to that, we'll start forecasting increased revenue resulting from the development, yes.
And then, but we're also looking at that $400,000 increase.
That's the only, we don't budget that far out.
We don't,
though. That-
yeah,
Right,
but
that-
we
We just
will.
I know.
look at that
We
as a
will.
horizon.
I'm saying it's one thing to.
And it
at
might
least-
change, it will change things,
Right.
exactly. It will change things. Yes.
Okay, I think that was it on citizen comments. Thank you for those. And seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. My favorite